It's me. It's Lenny Schmidt. What's up? It's Total Schmidt Show. Let's get right to it. Andrew Sleighter, good friend of mine, now lives outside of Portland or in Portland or somewhere near there. He's on the show this week. Here we go. Hey, welcome to Total Schmidt Show. How you doing? I'm back at sea. Here's what you're going to get from this show. It's kind of like quarantine comedy, except I'm not going to be home. Actually, it's kind of like quarantine comedy and a combination of all the stuff I've done online over the last year or so. There's sketch stuff, live stuff, stand-up stuff, travel stuff, and of course, conversations with others who do the same things that I do on a daily basis. That's it. That's the whole show. And I'm going to record it all and put it on the intraweb. Sometimes. Usually late. Always late. Maybe. I don't know. And weekly? Nah, maybe. Sort of. Could be. Either way, sit back. I hope you enjoy whatever the hell it is I put together for this week on Total Schmidt Show. Hey guys, thanks for coming back. This is Total Schmidt Show, and I have an episode today. This is going to surprise you a little bit. First of all, I just left the crew bar, so I'm a little bit, I've been drinking. Whatever. I'm a little whatever. This is an episode of Total Schmidt Show that I recorded on the the Bliss, Norwegian Bliss, this summer in Alaska. I know that's weird because a lot of the videos I've been doing lately are from a long time ago. But this one, I'm catching up. I'm trying to mix it up a little bit. So first of all, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel. Kind of a big deal. It really helps me immensely. Just subscribe, costs you nothing. And it helps me a lot. Also, all my socials are up here in one of these little corners somewhere. I'm not sure. I'll know when I edit the video. Maybe when I'm a little more sober. But today, Andrew Sleighter, good friend of mine. He lives in Portland now. He's a comic. I've worked with him a few times. And we spent some time on the Norwegian Bliss together. Maybe just a week. Great comic. Very funny dude. And this is actually one of my favorite episodes. He's got some great insights about the business of stand-up, and this is the kind of stuff I like to talk about. We had a lot of fun. It was cool. So sit back, enjoy my conversation with my good friend, the one and only Andrew Sleighter. So you're leaving Sunday.
I'm leaving Sunday. You can tell. I'm just very excited to go home.
Yeah.
I think everybody's got like a different tolerance level for these cruises. You do them more than I do.
Yeah, I'm on them all the time. So
yeah,
I'm kind of.
How do you feel about it though? Like when you are going home, are you like?
Oh, I love going home.
Yeah,
I think it's great.
But when you have to go again, are you dreading it, or are you kind of excited?
You know what? I always bring a lot of stuff to do, like this and editing and stuff. So like like this week I'm also on the workout thing, and I kind of have like a diet plan or a workout plan. So I kind of have something to do while I'm here.
Yeah.
So I get a little motivated about, all right, 2 weeks, and I'll see if I can lose some weight and how much editing I can get done. And like I get up early and edit, so that's helped. Because before I had that, leaving was, what made it harder honestly was I had to do that after COVID, because after COVID I hated going back. You know what I mean? Because I was home with my kids for 2 years.
Yeah.
And it wasn't bad.
Right.
It was pretty cool.
It's like a good life.
Yeah. And then after, like, you would think after 2 years being with your teenage girls, you're like, oh God, I can't do this anymore. But I'm like, man, if I could do this all the time, I would.
Yeah.
If I could retire now, I would.
That was kind of my thing during COVID. Well, first of all, before I say that, I like what you just said. It's like, you can make this, it's 2 weeks. You can kind of make it your camp for whatever you want. You can make it like fat camp or dirt bike camp or hiking camp. Like you can literally go 2 weeks. I'm an editing camp. You can like dedicate 2 weeks of your life to anything on here, because it's such a change from your daily routine.
Yeah.
And you're so out of, even if you have responsibilities, you can't do it. You can't go mow the lawn. You can't go, do all the shit you have to do at home. So that's a great. I'm gonna start thinking about it more that way. But
it helps, because it helps. Each trip is its own thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Each trip is like, okay, for this trip I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
So it helps me focus, and it gets me motivated to go.
Right.
All right, I'm going to totally, because before, like when I first came back, I was I was working again, so I'm like, oh good.
Yes.
I'm working again. But after, like, because the first thing I did, I think like a 5-week run or a 4-week run or something.
Yeah.
And after a couple of weeks, I was like, oh God, I forgot. This is too long to be gone.
I
know. And I don't know how these guys do it. They're gone for 9 months at a time. I know it's their life. You can adjust anything.
It's a mentality shift. You just have to go, this is my life. Like, your life's on here.
Right. Well, look at COVID. We adjusted that.
Yeah.
Quick, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're like, I guess this is what I'm doing.
Yeah. I get this. I would like to get to that where you like I said, you make it about something, because I get this like dread, coming on, or like when I'm about to come on, like, oh my God, 2 weeks. And then it filled my head with all these thoughts about career stuff and, all this. And then, but I get like excited when the booking comes in.
Right.
Because like that's money on the calendar. I look at the calendar, I'm like, bang, okay, that month's set, that month's set, that month's set. And it's these are like anchors for my for my year, when they all come in bunches, like the way they book it, right? Like so you kind of have points set along your year, and then everything else you can fill in and fill out a month pretty nice.
Yeah, and then you can kind of look forward to the 2 weeks off or the week off or however long you're home.
And there's less pressure to book the other weekends in that month or anything close to that or whatever. But I would like to do, if I'm going to keep doing them, I would like to change my mentality about it and be more positive and like be excited to be here kind of thing.
Yeah, try to do, you gotta, otherwise you're going to be miserable on here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You want to be miserable every day. You want to be that guy.
No. I'm putting that out, I suppose. But
or look at like other guys, like I know, Kenny Rogerson.
I know the name. I haven't actually met him, but yeah,
he's right. He has a script every time he's on, so he focuses on writing. It's like the one thing you have is like we talked about this a little bit the other day. When you're home, there is shit to do.
Yeah,
I mean, there's always whether it's like you said, mowing the lawn, cleaning the gutters, whatever the hell it is, or just basic running around mail stuff, stuff like that. But Rogerson, he's like, when I'm here, I can just focus on writing. I don't have to worry about any of that crap. So he really, he'll pound out a script in a cruise.
That's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but he'll spend all day in his cabin writing. He never comes out.
That's hard. That's very hard to do.
I don't know how he does it.
Yeah.
I'll be like, you want to get lunch? He's like, no, man, I'm working. I'm like, all right.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, because if I I don't write scripts, but even with stand up, like if I sit down with my notebook for like 20 minutes, I feel like king of the world. I'm like, I fucking did it.
fucking did it, man.
And it's some worthless pages of like, this is never going to be anything,
but
I still feel good about it, and I'm like, yeah, I wrote today. That's good,
Right.
Do you write all the time, or
not every day, because I balance out other stuff I'm doing. Like I know I'm going to write heavy. I'm going to write heavy tomorrow. Because there's a bit I'm doing tomorrow.
What does that mean when you say heavy?
Like I'll spend almost the whole. I'll spend most of the. I'll write. I'll get up in the morning and I'll watch the videos that I did before, and I'll edit some stuff, and then I'll look over some notes for an hour. I'll go to the gym, come back, and I'll probably write all afternoon. So from like 2 till 6.
See, I can't.
And
my brain won't work that way.
But it's like It's like I'm ADD, so I'm like I'll get an idea, but then when I write, I'll pace around the room. And I'll start blurting out bits, and
really,
you know what I mean. And then I'll write a bunch of stuff out. But it's like it's harder to do that for me sometimes, because like if I spend all day writing and I go on stage and that night and like some of it doesn't work, I get mad. I'm like, fuck. Yeah. It's 4 hours working on this shit, and 3 jokes worked.
You just described exactly what stand-up comedy is.
Yeah, I know. I knew that's exactly right. I know.
Yeah.
I just nailed it. Yeah. I put a lot of work into it, and then it doesn't work, and I go home and think I'm a lie. I'm a lie.
You get 2 seconds out of it.
Yeah, my life is a lie. I can't believe.
Yeah, I mean, but I guess that's what makes it so thrilling when something does work. When you've got a new bit that works.
Well, also when you do stuff off the cuff, the line last night you did about the contractors.
Yeah.
That's a great line.
Cut that out today, but but then that's frustrating, because you're like, that just comes out and works better than like all the stuff I spent out.
But don't let that be frustrating. You know what I mean?
No, I know. Right.
I understand what you're saying. You're funny, because I do the same. I get madder. That's why I don't. Writing hard is hard for me. Yeah. I'll get madder. I'm writing and then it doesn't work, because the more times you blur something on stage, it works. Yeah. And which is why I record everything. And that way I can listen and then save a joke. You probably found a joke. There's a way you can get that in.
No, totally. And I get, I'm just so impressed when people like your buddy Kenny or you can spend hours and hours at the same thing at the same time. Like what I do is like, I have ideas. I'll write them in the phone, just like little premise, one sentence.
Right.
And then I have like a little composition book, and I'll start at the top with the premise, whatever it is, and I'll just try to get to the bottom of keep writing until you're at the bottom of the page. Okay. Like even if the joke's over, I'll fill it out with shit.
Do you pen and paper?
Yeah, okay. Pen and paper. And then sometimes, very rarely, if it's really coming, I'll go over to the left. Like I start on the right, and then I'll go over to the left and like fill in shit. Sure. Weirdly, it's like right and then left. I think that comes from the high school I went to. But but then if I do that, it's like oh, relief, and then I'm done. And
Right.
if I just do one of those, I feel like so good about myself. And it's like 10-20 minutes. And then I'm like, but if you like if and I don't even do that every day, but if I had the discipline to do that every day, that 20 minutes a day is like you would fill up a notebook in 2 seconds, and you know, it'd be a lot more prolific.
But the negative about that is if you wrote like that every day, and that means every night you would go on stage and you would try stuff, and every night some things wouldn't work.
Right.
That's the hard part.
Yeah.
Is that every night something's not working.
And then people don't like, even like I have a good situation in Portland where people are very kind to me and will basically throw me on any show I want to do.
Right.
But like, you don't want to abuse that either. You
Right.
don't want to be like, oh, that's so nice. You know, you're showing the respect. I got to show the respect and
Sure.
make sure I do a good job. I can't just go up there and throw shit at the wall every time.
Sure. Right. Yeah.
And like betray them essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're like, why are we putting you?
Right.
Right.
Right. So I don't know. But yeah, I had my album come out earlier. I guess it was last year. And so now, like, when that happens, you know, it's like the pressure's on to kind of turn it all over again. And it's like,
Yeah.
it feels so far, it feels very like collection of like 5 or 6 actual bits that like work,
Right.
but nothing to build, you know, nothing to like.
As far as now after the album?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like nothing new to build like a foundation upon.
Well,
you know
that's
what I mean?
kind of where I'm at now, because my new album, we taped it in February.
Okay.
And it was supposed to come out in July, but we delayed it. But
Yeah.
still, I finish an album, and then I'll take a month off. I won't take a month off, but I won't focus hard on writing for like a month. You know what I mean? I'll just do whatever. But then I'll start to get an idea of what I want to talk about on the next
Right.
album.
Yeah.
And then I'll start. That's what I'll work on. I'll jot down ideas here and there. And so my notebook will kind of do the same thing. I have a note of the things I want to focus on for the album.
Yeah.
And on the right, I have a list of subjects come up, or then jokes I get from the subject or the idea.
Yeah.
The hardest part for me is the 2 months before the recording of the album, because I'm trying to tighten the material.
Yeah.
So I'm so material heavy. I'm not working the crowd. I'm kind of rigid, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I know that feeling.
Yeah, and I could not be in the moment much.
It doesn't feel as like much fun.
It's not fun.
Yeah,
I'm like miserable the last
Right.
2 weeks before the taping. I'm like, right
Right.
up till the night of the taping. 'Cause
Yeah.
then the night of the taping, I finally got to a point where I was like, when the night of taping, I used to freak out and go, all right, this is it.
Yeah.
Let's get it right. But now I'm like, if I don't get it right, I'll never get it. You know what I mean? If I don't have it right by now.
And you want to be loose the night of the taping. Like you want to,
Right.
if something happens, you want to just be able to, you know, because that could be magic too.
Sure,
like
of
you
course,
have no
yeah.
idea, you know, like,
Right.
I had a moment, we did 2 shows when I recorded, and the second show, I just had like a sort of, it wasn't even like nothing happened in the crowd, but I caught myself saying something, and I just kind of went on this run, like correcting myself and talking, and like it was like a good minute extra of like real stuff that worked, and it was like great.
Right.
And we left it in. I was like, that's what I want. I want that. It wasn't any of the polished, the way the joke was supposed to go, but I was like, it's better.
Yeah,
you
so
know?
you meant that way. Yeah,
and
it's
it
cool.
feels like a real show that way, you know. So
Right. Then you almost have the in the moment feeling.
yeah,
You're like you're in the room, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah, my taping in February, there was actually crowd work I was able to put in.
see, I love that.
There was a girl up front who was really young, like
Yeah.
freshman in college, and her boyfriend was like a junior.
Yeah.
And she was really pretty and not laughing a lot, and very millennial judgy.
Yeah.
So I kind of went with that route.
Yeah.
And it was a bunch of stuff I said to her that we just cut into one chunk into a track now. It's like a 3-minute track.
Yeah,
Talking to her and her
yeah.
boyfriend. It's just all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just
I love that on albums when there's crowd work. You know, like my favorite album ever is probably the Dave Attell Skanks for the Memories, you know?
Okay.
And he's
Okay, I've heard that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, it's my favorite. And he he has one where he just opens and somebody's walking out, you know? And he just starts talking shit to the person who walked, like, I just got up here. You know what I mean? And like, and they leave that in. And then he's like, someone yells out at some point, he's just like killing, you know, and someone yells out, "You're not bombing." And he goes, "Who are you, kid show business?" and they leave that in, you know, and it's great. It's so funny. And so, yeah, I like when people leave in crowd work and shit that happens in the room. You
Right.
know? It's better.
Well, it's easier now too, because I think we kind of talked about this the other day too. Like you taped 2 shows, when
Yeah.
you did your album. I taped my 2 shows when I did my album.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. And if you went, we're kind of the same process. Where with the 800-pound gorilla, where I worked with them,
Yeah.
you send them, they get the raw footage, they send it to you, and they go, you can either edit it or we'll edit it. And I've always edited it. I go, well,
Yeah.
I'll edit it. So I
Yeah.
listen to it, and what you learn when you start doing that you can pull out jokes and lines and words and shit if you don't need it.
Yeah.
And they're so good at putting it together. It sounds fantastic.
Yeah. No, I know.
So it's easier now than the old days where if you were recording, you have one night, one show to get it down.
Right.
And you couldn't, whatever it was, you're like, what? And if there was a shitty person in the crowd, I've had to, a couple times where somebody's destroyed a tape. I'm like, you fucker.
Yeah.
I mean, 6 weeks I've been waiting to get back to this club.
I know.
To tape the show, and you fucking show up drunk, you know? And
yeah. And I find the album I did before this, the host made a big deal about, I did it in Boise.
Okay.
And the host made a big deal about how, hey, this is an album. So, don't yell shit out, don't heckle, like, don't, be a dickhead. But sometimes I feel like they go over the top with that, and then the crowd's like, ha, 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 ha. They're like, you know what I mean? They're like robots.
Timid.
They're scared.
They
They're
don't want to
scared.
screw the recording.
Ha, 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 ha. And then
I
I
ask a question, and man, who drives?
Yeah.
And they're like, looking at each other.
Yeah, like, are we allowed to respond?
Yeah.
And so by the end of the weekend, like Saturday came, because I had Friday, Saturday, so like 4 shows. And so by Saturday, I told them like, hey, don't even, like, they know it's an album. I mean, if there's people around, it's on the poster. We don't need to say shit. Let's just do it like a regular show.
Right.
And it was way better. It's like,
yeah.
And I think even then there was like a drunk lady who yelled, but then it's like, fine.
Right.
We cut, like, it's 4 shows, you cut around it, or
you
you
just
leave
cut
it
it out.
in. But
Yeah, there was the one, not this last one, but the one before that. We taped 2 shows, but I couldn't use almost anything from the Late Show. Because there was a drunk guy to the left, and he was just, I even said from the stage something like, hey, did you not see the signs that said we're recording?
Yeah.
And he just hammered being an ass,
Yeah.
Late Show Friday. He's one of those nights where somebody just doesn't give a shit. You know?
That's frustrating when it's like, fine. That's the thing. Like, people are like, oh, I made the show better or whatever.
No, you
never did.
I know.
But also, yeah, sometimes there's moments that are like, that was a unique moment. Because
but you're the one that makes it better.
Right.
You're the one. Yeah,
right.
You fix it.
By
you fix
fixing
it.
it.
Yeah.
But nobody likes it more than like 10 minutes at max.
Right.
I have a theory, like, people kind of like it when, like, oh, there's a drunk person, the comedian's making fun of the drunk person, and they get off on it. They're like, oh, they're talking, like, comedian destroyed heckler, all that shit. They love that, right? But they only like it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes max.
Yeah, right.
After a while, because I've been guilty of that, where I go on too long and I'm just going on after the guy and keep bringing him back into the show and keep harping on what an asshole there or whatever it is.
Right.
And I can kind of see other people, like, their eyes just kind of go,
Right.
can you just move? Just do your act.
Right.
You know what I mean? Just move on. Okay, we get it now,
Or like the guy will chime in 15 minutes later or something. After
yeah, and it's like, we're
and
done.
You can see the crowd roll their eyes.
Yeah. Like, again with this? Yeah. Like, they've moved on. Like, they're ready to not have that guy be the star of the show, So that's something it is like it. I think comedians, ego-wise, we want to be the heavy hand. We want to be the knockout punch.
Right.
But I do think 9 times out of 10, like, the lighter touch is like almost always better. Like, to gracefully put the person down, be funny, get the pop out of it, and be able to glide out of that.
Well, I think that's even more.
It's like an assassin bullet rather than like a machine gun.
Right.
Is better.
And it's also a little more. It's even more. That's even more correct now, I think.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
when I
yeah.
started out, I was a big Kinnison fan. And I had really long hair, and it was very loud and rowdy. And people would say, and I would tear hecklers. I mean, I would tear them apart.
Yeah.
And I had a club owner tell me once, goes, "Do you scare the shit out of the whole room when you do that?" I go, "Well, what am I supposed to do?" He's like, "Well, don't be so angry."
No, but that's what you learn.
Yeah,
that's that's what you love about comics. They're like, they're these fucking rugged individuals. Like, don't fuck with us, man. Like, that's why you get into it.
This is my show.
Yeah. This is my stage,
and the crowd gets afraid of you.
Yeah.
And they freak out. So that was an issue back then. So I learned, like, I was talking to someone else about this the other day. I always look at it, it's kind of like a party, and I'm the center of attention. I'm just talking with my friends. So that's the vibe I kind of bring. So if someone does heckle, I can turn the crowd against them easier now. 'Cause
Right.
if you keep the crowd on your side, you can turn the crowd against them.
Right. Yeah. It's that likability thing. As long as you're still likable, you can really get away with anything.
Yeah, but if you lose that, you're in trouble, and it's even more obvious now because now the line of what you can say to someone,
Yes.
you know, it's it's
You
different.
can be very conscious how you go after them.
Right.
And what avenue you take to like, you can't really even call them like fat. You
No, I
can't
was
go
gonna
after
say,
that.
some
Weight's
guy-
kind of out the window. You know?
I mentioned fat to some guy, and he says, "Are you weight shaming me?" As he
Yeah.
yelled at me. And
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh shit, yeah, I think
Yeah.
it was."
You nailed it.
That's exactly what I was doing.
How'd you know?
Used to be a tool in my arsenal years ago, and now apparently I got to throw that one away. Thank you.
Yeah. But like old too, like age is
Yeah.
trickier now, and like you know, you can be ageist or whatever. But I mean, you know, it just requires you to be more creative, and then also like attack them more on the merits of like if they're drunk or if they're ruining the show. It's like get them for what they're saying or like why they're being an asshole rather than like their identity or whatever.
Yeah, there's more of a psychological approach.
Yeah.
You get into what's wrong.
Yeah,
What's wrong?
Oh my god, my wife always says that. She said one time she was bartending. She used to like be like a beer tender, just pour beers in Portland, and she's just having a shitty day, you know, and like pissed off, and she's just like, someone asked for water or something. And it's like the last thing she want to do is go get somebody a water.
Right.
And they just go, "Is everything okay?" And she's like, it was so disarming because like. You know what I mean? Because it like cuts through. It's not like them being rude and she's being rude and then they're escalating. It's just like they were like, they could tell she was mad. And rather than like be mad that someone's rude, it's just like, is everything okay? And it's just a way I think about that all the time whenever I have like shitty service or like, you know, someone be an asshole for no reason. It's like, rather than get mad, just go, "Hey, are you all right?
Are you good?
Everything good?" And there's no way they can really be an asshole after that.
Right.
Now
They
it's
go,
like, yeah, you know what? I am kind of pissed off.
Well, I always think about that because I used to work in service. So anytime I see a waiter, I almost immediately like they got to be getting slammed or a bad day.
Yeah.
I can tell the difference between a bad waiter and somebody's getting destroyed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you said something that was interesting. It forces you to be more creative now, which is like everybody talks about cancel culture and all the things that comics can't say. And I like to compare it a lot of times to the clean shows we do on the ships.
Yeah.
People are like, isn't it hard to do a clean show? I'm like, no, you just got to be more either creative or clever to say the things you want to say.
Yeah.
In the right
I don't like when they say adult show, like one's adult and one's, I'm like, they're all adult shows. I don't do any kid shows.
Right.
None of this shit is like puppets, you know? I just.
Hi, boys and girls. Like, sock in your hand.
Yeah. I just don't like the implication, you know?
Right.
They're all for adults. All my jokes are for adults. It's just like, there's just like, it's like the Carlin thing. There's just like 8 words, you know, 7 dirty words. You can't say it later.
Right.
For the earlier shows. And so it forces you to be more creative. And like on here, we were talking about the hecklers. On here, it's like you said, now it's more true about being a little lighter touch, but on here it's a real light touch. Like people are very sensitive. They don't know they don't go out, I think, all the time.
Like you said yesterday,
home.
a lot of these people have never been to a comedy show before.
Right.
So
you can hurt someone's feelings very easily on here.
Right.
Where it's different. Like in Chicago, I'm sure at Zany's or something, it kind of takes a lot to offend somebody. Whereas.
Well, yeah. Plus, if somebody crosses, first of all, you can't. If somebody crosses the line in a club, they'll get kicked out.
Right.
You know what I mean? If somebody comes in and tells you need to be quiet.
And they only paid. When someone's at a comedy club, they only paid like $20-$30 to get in.
Right.
When someone is at your show on a cruise ship, they paid like $1,500 or something. You know what I mean? So it's like they become such a more valuable customer to the house, to the security. Yeah. And they're not going to have your back as much against them.
It's like a giant corporate gig. In every way. It's like a huge.
It is. Yeah.
So you got to really be careful how you're handling the crowds because they think also they've been trained to think that the heckling thing is part of it.
Right.
So they're like, watch this kid. And they're excited. And so if you attack that person, they're like, I was just trying to be part of it.
That's what the dude said to me, Igor. He came up to talk to me after my show, at the 9:00 show. Yeah, okay. He was there again. And he was all mad. Because I didn't recognize him. First of all, so we've been, speaking of light touch, he was sitting in the deaf community area where they have the signer. We've had signers on the ship.
Left, right,
yeah. And by the way, I noticed that is like distracting. Like having the signer on. I had my signer was on stage
Last night
again.
they did. There was
and it's so much more distracting because before they could sit, they should sit.
Yeah.
You know, because I could see people's eyes going. Not even just people who weren't deaf. I could see their eyes going back and forth between me and the signer.
Oh, I was watching her all night last night, not you. In fact, the pole was where you were, and I could see her. So I was listening to the joke.
You were learning sign language.
But she's doing. But if she does the facial thing, you know what I mean? It's like a little moment shot. So I'm like, this is great.
But so this Igor dude, he was sitting he was sitting with them, basically in that spot with all the other. And so at one point during the show, I didn't recognize him. You know, I don't remember what he looked like. He's just another old guy in here. But then I say something, and he just starts waving his hand.
Oh,
like
that was him. Oh,
yeah.
All right.
And I go, oh, and I'm about to like make fun of this person who's just like wants to be called on, and then I'm like, oh shit, they're deaf. They're just waving to like say like you know that was a good joke. Or I don't know what this is in sign language or whatever. But I was like, I'm not fucking with that, you know. So I just moved on as quick as I could, and then he came up afterwards like, why didn't you pick on me? Why didn't you talk to me? I was like, I don't fucking know. I didn't. Yeah. You know what I mean? Don't sit with the deaf people and start signing at me and expect me to talk to you.
Yeah,
so,
I'm not obligated to pick on you, by the way.
Yeah.
So I was wondering who talked to you. I saw him wave his hand.
Yes.
And then I saw him talk to you, and I didn't even put it together.
That was the same dude. And I guess because of the show previous that we split, he was sitting in the very front row he wanted to be picked on. Right. And I didn't oblige. Because I don't just pick on people if they're in the front row if they don't say shit. Like, you know, whatever. It's just, there was nothing about it. He was an old guy, you know, I don't know what to say. And then his wife was behind him. And then like halfway through my set, he got up and moved back to sit next to his wife. And then he's like, his wife was all pissed off because she didn't want to sit in the front row. She
was mad. Because I picked up when you left.
Yeah.
I went right at him. I didn't care.
Yeah.
And I told you, I think I gave him $5 to leave the show.
Yes. Yeah. He told me all about that. And went, I was like, I'm cheap. You wouldn't have gotten any money from me. I don't fucking care. But, they were, because that's when I started talking to him when he got back and moved one row. And I was like, I didn't know if he knew this lady or not. You know, he just sat right next to her.
Yeah, it was very ominous. You know what I mean? But when he sat next to her, she was not happy.
Right.
Know? And then I started talking to her, and she, at one point, she looked so miserable.
This is great.
I told her you could leave. I go, you can go. You're not forced to stay here. She really looked uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then she just goes.
And then she leaves. Yeah. And I go, okay, all right, bye, goodbye. And then and that's when I looked at him and go, do you want to leave with her? He's like, no, I'll give you $5 if you just leave. And he got up, gave him the $5, and then he walks around to the back and he sits in the back row. And I saw him, and I go, oh no, you gotta go. I go, I gave you $5 to leave. I'm not doing another joke till you leave this room. And he got up and he walked out the room.
It's hilarious.
Yeah,
yeah, but he loves it. I mean, that's the thing. It's like people are weird. But I think he just wants to, like you said, he just wants to be the star of the show every time.
Well, there's a lot of guys on shifts. There's a lot of guys like that. That guy last night that you got, the booster guy that didn't get the booster.
Yeah.
That's the guy that swore in my family show like 4 times.
Yeah.
And I had to call. I called him out at once.
Yeah.
And a couple times, and then I saw him after your show, and he came up, and I knew when it happened. I looked at Sarah, who's a magician, and I go, I bet you that's the guy that was swearing in my show. I didn't even see him.
Right.
I go, I swear that's got to be the guy because he just wants to be involved.
Yeah.
I go, I bet you that's him. So when he comes up afterwards and says, I said something. He said he was the booster guy. I go, I knew you were the booster guy.
Yeah.
I immediately knew you were the booster guy.
Yeah.
He goes, yeah. I go, you got to keep it clean during those family shows. And he goes, well, you need to tell me that. I go, I told you 3 times. I go, 3. He goes, you're right. I did tell you. You did.
Yeah. Yeah. He was funny because like, he was having a great time, and him and his wife were probably the loudest laughers, you know, in the front row, just dying at everything. Then I do that booster thing, and he's just stone-faced for like, and it's like 3 joke after effect too, till he forgave me. It's funny. Like I was like, it wasn't even when I moved on from vaccines, he was like, then he was still pissed off on some other joke that had nothing to do with that, and then like by 3. He had forgotten it, and he was back into the show and able to enjoy it again. But he just had his little temper tantrum, and then he, people are like little kids. You know what I mean? It's hilarious. Right. Yeah.
Well, 3 jokes isn't bad.
No, it's not bad. It's probably because he was drinking and just forgot. But
yeah, that could be it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the hardest thing about you traveling now is with the kids.
For sure. Yeah. That's the hardest. And like, I spent, it's funny, we're doing this thing here, like all the cameras and mics and stuff. And
Right.
I spent the pandemic trying to really figure out, like, is there a way for me to stay a comedian but not go back on the ships, because it's like it's going to be so hard with the baby and everything.
Yeah.
And there was I mean, the virtual stuff was great when it was around, but like the virtual stand-up gigs, I was doing those a fair amount, Zoom shows, but they just didn't really have the good paying ones. Don't seem to have the staying power. It seems like everyone's moved back to like.
Yeah, I knew they would end up disappearing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Once people could start going to clubs or going out again.
Yeah.
That they were just like.
It's not as appealing as it once was. And so, and I get that. I mean, but then like I started my podcast and I was like trying to like, maybe I'm like experimenting with this kind of different model of, rather than like booking yourself at a club and then they just pay you a rate and, a little bit of travel money or whatever. It's like booking your own venue where you get X amount of the door, hopefully a high percentage, and then you book the openers, you get yourself there, but you also take the gate, you take the tickets, and then you're responsible about filling it up. But with these, with some of this social media ad stuff, I've been like trying to learn about it. It's like it's not as hard as you think to drive people there. But
you drive them off your podcast and stuff.
Yeah.
That's the Stanhope does that. That's what Stanhope's thing is. And my brother Mike does it. Same thing.
Yeah.
He does a theater every few months or whatever. And it's all followers.
Yeah. And so if you can do that, it's like there's a lot of money in that model, and it's like also a way to build a following. Because on here, it's the same thing as a comedy club. I always say, like, if you go to Zany's, right, and you crush, you fucking kill it.
Right.
People are gonna leave and go, man, that was so much fun. We should go back to Zany's sometime.
Yeah, right. That's true. We should go back to that place.
But if they see you at like a black box theater that doesn't do comedy except for when, you're there.
Yeah, right.
They're going to go, hey, that was great. We got to see that Lenny guy again.
Yeah,
we saw the Lenny Schmidt show, And it's the same thing on a ship. They're not going to think, oh, we got to go see Andrew Sleighter again. They're going to think, man, Norwegian's awesome. We should go on another cruise. They have great comedians.
Especially on the ship, because there's so many other shows and stuff going on.
There's so many other shows. There's hardly any Wi-Fi. Even if you can get them to remember your website, then it's like they got to like log in to, follow you or whatever. And so I just think there's so many benefits from that other model where you're driving everything yourself. Yeah. The problem is there's a ton of risk, and when you're the breadwinner, and when you're like there's a mortgage and there's a kid, and like in your situation, there's 2 kids and there's college and there's a lot riding on it. Risk isn't like a great
thing. No,
thing.
I know.
And like also with the inflation stuff I've run into this summer, it's like even if you do pretty good, you gotta, go other. You can't just stay around. I can't just stay in Oregon. I gotta like hit the road,
Right. Yeah.
And it's hard to make money when flights are $1,200 round trip out of Portland. So that all that stuff adds up to like the ship's still being pretty appealing money wise.
Right.
And it's hard. It's hard to like get off of it. It's hard to break it.
Right. Yeah, but we're kind of getting that. I think the future of so much of this is, I think we're heading in that direction across the board on a lot of entertainment and comics especially. But like it's not like anymore. There's 4 networks and a comedian comes huge and everybody wants to see that comedian.
Right.
Everybody has their own market of people that have a huge. I mean, there's a lot of people that have a big following, and I don't know who they are. Right. And they show up and they fill out a room. Like, who is Johnny Wilkinson? I have no idea.
It's very targeted. Yeah, and like you're responsible for so much more than you used to be. Like used to be you're just like a comedian, you gotta have an act, have a good hour, do a good job, and that was enough, right? Like now you gotta be like your own Fortune 500 company. You gotta be like a brand. You gotta be like have cameras and microphones, and you got to have a studio space, and you got to have like film all your shows, and there's so much goes into it, and your website's got to kick ass, and there's it's so competitive now, and
and it's time consuming. Like the video thing you did this morning, how long did that take you?
It takes a couple hours. Just to and just the sheer amount of video you're dealing with everything takes time. Like it fills up a card, and then you got to get that on the laptop, and then my laptop can only handle like one high-res 40-minute video at a time.
Yeah, no, I just ran into that issue with my MacBook. I had to get another hard drive. You know what I mean? A backup hard drive.
Yeah. So, I mean, what they ask of you now to just simply be a working comedian is more, in my opinion, then I'll just speak from my own experience, but ever since I've been a working comedian, this has been the hardest you've had to work just to stay a working comedian. I think.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a double-edged sword because like there's way more possibilities for exposure on your own.
Yes.
As you have more control over getting your stuff out there.
Yeah.
Like you don't need a label and a manager. You can do all this stuff on your own, but the amount of work that goes into it is way more than it ever has been, I think.
Yes, and I'll also say, like, you're right. There's more opportunity, I think, but it's just there's less chance to be what I always wanted to be, was a guy who just could coast. So yeah, there's more opportunity, but all that opportunity requires hard work. And in the old days, it would take a lot of hard work too, but there was room for some people to just sort of coast.
Well, the hard work part of it was supposed to be the writing.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And that's the part I like.
And then I know, I'm with you. And so I agree with you 100% because I got to a point where I had enough material and I was killing all the time or whatever. You know, I'm doing good shows.
Right.
And you're like, okay, that's great. Now you want to get rebooked, and now you're not getting rebooked because there's a guy with 4,000 followers or 40,000 followers.
Yeah.
And suddenly you've got to get, and like I've brought people in. I've played clubs all over the country. Vegas, I've done it a lot where I've had people see me on a ship, have flown into Vegas and spent a weekend and saw me at a club in Vegas.
Yeah.
I got a Patreon page. So, I mean, but all that takes so much time to feed the Patreon page. And then you got to stay in touch with everybody and get comments out there and get a hold of these people and to let them know that you're there. But they might come out, but it's a daily work to get up and do it.
Yeah.
I mean, just the clips alone that you're going to put on TikTok or whatever.
Yeah.
They'll be up there forever. But, you know, if you get some feedback from it for a couple of days and then maybe you'll get feedback later.
No, it's just an endless beast to feed, you know?
Yeah.
And hopefully it all adds up to something at some point where you do have a following because to me that's the reason why you do all this stuff is like it's the ultimate it's like it makes you bulletproof career wise, you know, like they can take anything away, and the pandemic taught me this. Like they can really take anything away. They can take a club can decide not to book you, a ship can decide change their bookers and go, we don't like you anymore. You know, colleges can just not work with you. They can really take it all away. The only thing you can control is like how many fans will just never, you know, and those are the people who are invincible. And they go, even if no one books me for anything, I can just find a venue, tell my people to show up,
and they'll be there. Right.
And that makes you a working comedian.
Right.
You know, and so that's the only, I don't even know if I would have kept going if it weren't for how much I just purely love stand-up.
Right.
And my identity's all wrapped up in it. I love comedians. I love being a comedian.
Right.
I love everything that means. I love like the history of it. I love like the weirdness of it and all the dumb bookers and smelly green rooms and all that shit. I love all of it.
Well, there's something about a combination with comics too. Like I can hang around with comics and talk all night long about nothing.
You know what I mean? The fucking hangs. Yeah. And like, if it weren't for all that, like this stuff is so foreign. I mean, it's like the social media and the cameras and the watching yourself and all that, it's very foreign to me. It doesn't come natural. The self-facing video when a club, you know, now you do a club and they'll ask for like a promo video. They want you to talk to your camera and it's like, hey, Milwaukee, I'm gonna be there in 2 weeks. That takes me like 400 takes, you know, just to say 2 sentences, and I'm like, oh fuck, I fucked it up. Hey, Cincinnati, I'm not going to Cincinnati. Hey, well, Milwaukee, and then you know. My wife calls into the room.
Worst director?
Yeah, it's just the worst. It's the worst. You know, I mean, it's not me. It's just not what I was born to do. But like, the only thing that makes me do it all is like that stand up is still so fucking fun. And
well, it makes you like we talked about this the other day too a little bit. It makes you relevant. You got to stay in their heads.
Yeah.
And now the only way to stay now the good thing is like the way to stay in their heads, you have control over that.
Yeah.
Like you were talking about they can take a lot of things away from you, but like now I've got like 300 or 400 hours of content on YouTube.
Yeah.
A lot of these shows, a
Yeah.
lot of stand-up clips, but no one can take that. Well, I mean, YouTube could shut it down.
Yeah,
I'm sure, but
yeah, they
I mean,
can.
That's possible.
Yeah,
But that's I have control over that. So you have very little control over shit.
Wait till I get into my 9/11 theories. They'll take you down in 2 seconds. No.
That'll be good. I'll get shut down. Gone.
For this interview. Yeah, and like there is the rare like comic, and there's lots of comics out there who don't do any social media. They're still very successful, and like people actually respect that. I think it's like there's an air of mystique about it. Like, wow, they're not on Instagram. Wow, they're not on Twitter or whatever. But for every one of them, there's like 1,000 that aren't getting booked because they let that shit go. You know what I mean? Like, not everybody gets to be the like Gerard Carmichaels of the world or whatever, or Tig Notaros, where they shut down all their shit and nobody cares. They're cooler than ever.
Sure.
Because trust me, there's a lot of people who just don't do social media, and all they did was just fade into oblivion and aren't getting spots anymore or shows.
Well, I noticed a lot when I did that show during COVID. Because a lot of people, you know what it was? It was a lot of the earlier ship guys, the guys that were around before we kind of showed up.
Yeah.
The guys that have been around for 40 years or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's some that are really funny guys and great. And there are other guys that have been doing the same act for 30 years.
Yeah.
And when I had some guys I had on the show, and I would always, before I do the show back then, I would check your social media and website and all this stuff. And some guys I couldn't find shit.
Yeah.
And I would be like, how do you have nothing anywhere? I'm like, but they worked every week on a ship.
Yeah, they didn't need it.
But then the ships are gone, and they're like, now I don't know what to do. And I'm like, dude, this is why you need to do something. You know?
And then not just that, but like the ships are gone, but then the bookers can change on you too.
Sure,
and then when the bookers change, the first thing they do, all these bookers who are in their 30s or 40s, first thing you've been trained to do your whole life is Google the person and look them up on Instagram or their website, and if you can't find anything, you're going to be really skeptical.
Well, all these club owners too now are looking for, a lot of these clubs
follower count,
and they have cameras in the room.
Yeah.
So they tape your show. So then the next day everybody has a social media person at their club. So they edit a video, put it on, go, here's Andrew Sleighter this week, blah, 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 or whatever.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's part of the job now. It's part of the job. And then so I always I laugh when I don't understand these guys like the idea that it's similar to. Because I started, I've been doing it longer than you, I would assume, right?
Yeah.
I've been doing it a long time. I came in right at the end of the boom. There's the boom, right?
Right.
In fact, when I first started to feature, I was getting between like 15 and 18 a week to feature, right?
Damn.
Yeah.
So wait, I'm just trying to place, because booms gets thrown around for different booms, but
this
like
is, late 80s.
Late 80s. Okay, I was gonna say early 90s,
there were
but okay.
clubs everywhere.
Yeah.
Every Chicago had 6 clubs. There were 6 nights a week. And you went to it all the time.
So you tasted that real boom. That's the real boom.
I got it as a feature, but then when the crush came, when I got bumped to the headline, I was only making like 17. I mean, I only went for $100.
Right.
But I knew guys that were getting paid $5,000 a week to headline that suddenly were like, well, I'm not working for $2,000.
Yeah.
Right. And then they just got rid of them.
Yeah.
Or if they were good enough, they moved on to bigger and better things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so it's kind of a similar situation. I think with the ships, because the argument was this: I've been doing this forever. I should get some respect.
Yeah.
And if there's any business where you don't get any respect for being around a long time, it's comedy.
No.
Because if you're just around for a long time, nobody gives a shit.
Right.
If you're funny and you're relevant,
it's actually a mark against you.
Yeah, 100%.
I've talked about this before, but there's a weird number of years to be doing stand up that's like cool.
Yeah.
And then if you don't have the appropriate accomplishments to go with that number, it starts to get like less cool.
Right.
And then it's like, because I know guys who used to lie when I started out. They used to lie and say they'd been doing stand up longer than they had to get gigs. So if they'd only been doing it 2 years, they'd say 5 so that they could get better gigs or something,
Right.
But then once you start doing it 10 or 12 years, all of a sudden those same liars would start saying, oh yeah, I've been doing it 7, 8, because they didn't want the it hasn't happened for me yet.
Yeah,
but I've been doing it for 12, 15 years. So better to say I've been doing it for 5 or 6 years. And then everyone it's just all so stupid. But you're right. You don't get, no one's comes to LA and goes, hey, I've been doing this for 25 years. So
Right.
Where's my spots? Where's
Right.
my,
Well, and just
improv?
saying,
Hello.
the
I've been
improv
doing.
doesn't come out to the line and go, "Who's been doing it longer than
Yeah.
20 years?" And you know what I mean?
Right.
That's
Right.
Not, that's not
That's
the
just
thing.
not. Yeah. It's a very competitive. They
Yeah.
do not give a shit.
Well,
And,
I never worried. It wasn't so like I've been doing it 35 years, and
Yeah.
I personally I think it's cool. 'Cause
Yes,
I'm
and
still working,
and it
but
well, that's what's cool about it. That is
Yeah.
what's cool about it.
Right.
Is you're still,
but you're
doing
only
stuff
working
like
because you're
this.
funny and relevant. Like
Yeah.
you know, you've got to be. Like, I did a show at Zanny's in Chicago last year, in 2020 maybe. No, it was last year in July.
Yeah.
Downtown. And I had cousins there. The whole crowd was under 30. It was just a bunch of 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds. It was one of the best shows I've had in years. I mean, I crushed.
Yeah.
Talked to my cousin afterwards, and dude, I
Yeah.
felt like a stud. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's what you want. I mean, I'm
Right.
57 years old,
And you're
and
still
I'm making
yeah.
these kids laugh. You know what I mean? And
I
that's
love
what
that.
matters.
Yeah.
Everyone's. My argument was always like, guys would be like, "What am I supposed to do?" And I go, "Write."
Yeah.
Just write. Update your shit. Don't
Yeah.
do a Bill Clinton joke. Nobody cares about Bill Clinton or Hillary
Right.
Clinton or don't you have a Tic Tac joke by now or a TikTok
Right.
joke?
They do have a Tic Tac joke. That was the problem.
That's the problem. Why won't anyone get my
their
Tic Tac joke?
Their big closer. They rattle
3
the
X's
case.
around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I think that's like the best. That is the best kryptonite to any of like stand-up's problems is just writing a shit ton.
Right.
Because you can control it. It does always lead to better things.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you can look at, like, I think of Jay Leno who used to talk about that. Like he figured out, I mean, he's like a psycho about this, but like he could figure out how much per joke, what each joke was worth, like a dollar amount
Really?
for all his jokes.
He's
because
insane.
like he's like, I've done this many specials. I get paid this much for each gig. I get like, and it's true though. I mean, at the end of the day, you're basically just a collection of your jokes.
Sure.
I mean, if they told you couldn't do any of your jokes tonight, you could still go on stage and survive and do crowd work, and I get that.
Right.
But the stuff like your albums and the stuff that's making you the passive money, like those are just jokes that you wrote one time,
Right.
and you had to sit down and do that. And
Yeah.
if you hadn't have taken the time, they wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
And so I think this the ego is what stops you from writing, because sometimes you go, I don't want to try new shit. This works, and I'm already a legend. So why should I change anything? You know?
Right.
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap this up because that's
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
other two.
Let's do it.
We're
Wrap it
knocking on
up.
the door. Dude. You have any? First of all, Andrew Sleighter, thank you very much for being here.
Of
Socials,
course.
anything you want to get out
Yeah,
there?
just at Andrew Sleighter on most everything, or my website's andrewcomedy.com, andrewcomedy.com, and then Slater spelled Sleighter.
Perfect.
That's it.
Dude, thanks. Thanks
Yeah,
for
man.
doing this.
Of course.
I'll talk to you soon. Well, I'll see you later.
Yeah. Where are you going somewhere?